Blog post 5. Date March the 2nd. Followers 6. Time 10 p.m. Hours stuck in this room. Sorry, my phone just ran out of battery. I just had time to hit post. I should have realised it was getting low. Thankfully, Lavisa popped in only a couple of minutes later to check on me. I am so sorry, she said, pulling me in for a hug. It was strange having such close contact with someone other than family. I could hear her heart beating and the smell of blood pumping in her veins. It was more enticing than freshly baked bread and fried bacon all in one. Before you start wondering if this whole blog is going to end with me telling you how I've just killed my best friend along with everyone at her party, you should know that Mum spent the last 5 years doing blood desensitization on me, and I wouldn't have come here at all if I'd thought I'd be a risk. But this is the first time I've ever truly been put to the test. Thankfully, having her scent to hone in on stops me from thinking about all the others that are floating up from the rooms below. I honestly had no idea this was going to happen, she apologised yet again. I told Jamie that you were coming, and he obviously saw how excited I was. We'd talked about having an engagement party at some point, but I really didn't know he was planning this. It was a complete surprise. They shouldn't be here much longer. Can I get you anything? There's cake, but I guess you don't eat that. Glenn said you brought extra. You know. Blood? Right. It takes an awesome type of person to be okay with you drinking blood in their spare room. But Lavisa is awesome. I'm fine. Honestly, I'm having fun listening in on all the conversations. I didn't think it was appropriate to say I'd used the time to start my own blog. For example, did you know that Jess and Lucy have been secretly dating for over 2 months? What? No way. But now you mention it. Her smile flared and then faltered. All those years away from each other, and I can still read her like a book. I'll admit, even if her expression was telling me that she really needed to be playing the part of the perfect host. It's okay, you go, I'll be fine. Though, if you have a phone charger, that would be great. Give me 1 minute, there's one in my bedroom. And as soon as I get rid of these people, we can talk. I really am so sorry. I never... Lavisa, it's fine. Enjoy your surprise party. She gave me another brief hug, fetched the charger, then disappeared back downstairs. I have to give it to her. She is one brave girl. If I'd seen someone do what I did that night 5 years ago, I'm not sure I would even let me in the house, let alone trust me to be around her friends. But Lavisa's awesome. I mentioned that, right? Unfortunately, I've now got myself thinking about that night, and it seems only fair that I tell you, since I brought it up. If you've ever been heartbroken, you'll know what I mean when I say I was a wreck. Being forced to leave Finn felt like my ribs had been smashed into 1,000 splintery shards, and every breath I took sent one of them ricocheting into my heart. I couldn't think straight. It just wasn't possible. Every thought I had was about him, what he was doing, who he was with, how often he thought of me, how he could have done this to me. I spent hours reliving our last kiss, remembering where we were and how long it had lasted and who had broken away first. I could almost feel the pressure of his soft lips pressing against mine, the slight pleasure pain as he bit my lower lip, the feel of his tongue. It was actual insanity. I could never have believed that he would abandon me. Never in a million years. I mean, I would have scoured the earth to find him if his family had just packed up one night and left with nothing more than some bullshit excuse about him being sick. That's what you do when you love someone, isn't it? You fight for them. But nope. Nothing. Almost a year and a half after I turned, I was on the phone to Lavisa saying this exact same thing for probably the 700th time. "Why don't you just ask him?" she said. "I told you I can't. When I've tried to ring his house, the phone says it's disconnected. The number must have changed." "I think I saw him," she said after a moment. "I drove past his house the other day. His mum's still there. He was outside talking to her. It was either him or his little brother, the one you used to play in the band with. What was his name?" "Noah," I replied. "That's it. Well, they were all still at the house, so they haven't moved." Great. The fact that she could see him but I couldn't felt like a heavy weight pushing down on my chest. "That's not exactly useful to me stuck here," I said. "Why don't I come and get you? We could put an end to all of this for good." It wasn't the first time she had suggested meeting up, but before this I had still been too wary. I wasn't exactly an experienced vampire. I usually had control around my family, but tranquilizings were still an almost fortnightly occurrence, and I wasn't sure what I was capable of. But I was antsy and frustrated and tired of every second of the day being consumed with thoughts about what could have been. So unlike every other time that Lavisa had made this suggestion, and I had dismissed her idea with a groan, this time I didn't. "How?" I said after a pause. "It's a 3-hour drive, and I don't have a car, remember?" "But I do." "Well, there's a small issue of my parents. They're not just going to let me leave. Only—" a thought triggered at the back of my mind, and I raced downstairs to check the calendar on the fridge. Mum's got a conference next month before she goes back to work full time. She's away for the whole weekend. I could sense Lavisa smiling on the other end of the line. "It looks like we're starting to form a plan," she said. The next 2 weeks were spent plotting. Lavisa was at university and had been given a brand new 4-wheel drive for her 18th birthday by her parents, so she was just fine. It was my situation that needed sorting. With Mum sorted, the next issue was Glenn, who was now 14 and, as previously discussed, annoying with it. Back then, he wasn't in on any of it, and I just couldn't take the risk of having him mucking things up. "Can't you send him on a sleepover that weekend?" I said to my parents over breakfast the next morning. Lavisa and I had talked until the early hours about how awesome our reunion was going to be, which was fine for me as I don't need sleep, but I felt guilty about how knackered she was going to be for her lectures. "He drives me mad when you're not here. He's always in my room, fiddling with the curtains and letting in light." "That's so not true," he piped up. "It is too," I countered. I could see Mum mulling over the idea. She hated leaving me, and as much as she trusted Dad, he'd fallen into a research hole recently, which meant his focus on anything else was variable at best. "Imagine if I got burned and accidentally lashed out on him by mistake," I added. "It's probably not a bad idea," Mum conceded at last, concerned by the fighting that had already started. "I'll speak to Jamie's mum, see if you can spend the weekend there instead." "Can I take my iPad? Jamie's mum won't let him have one." "We'll see," she replied. Suppressing a grin, I finished my blood and headed back upstairs to message Lavisa. "Stage 1 sorted," I sent. Now all we had to do was deal with Dad. There was no point trying to get rid of him until Mum was well and truly out of the way. Any sniff of me being on my own, and she would have had the plane turned around. I honestly believe she has the power to do that. Friday finally arrived, and off she went with a small suitcase, leaving a long list of instructions on the fridge. The moment she texted to say she was at the airport, I phoned Lavisa. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'm about 15 minutes away." "Okay. It's time. We need to do this. You all right, love? Dad asked, appearing in the kitchen for a rare coffee break. I discreetly hung up the phone. You look agitated. Just waiting for dinner time, I replied, then flicked out my fangs just for fun. That joke never gets old. Even now it makes him jump. He offered a happy nod, then switched on the kettle. 2 seconds later, and the house phone rang. Given that no one ever uses it to speak to me, I let Dad get it, while I slipped upstairs to my room, ready to listen in, already knowing the exact script she was going to use. Hello, he said. Hello, is that Professor David Colt? Now, I could tell that it was Lavisa putting on a posh accent, and I'm fairly sure Mum and possibly even Glenn would have known it was her. But my dad? He didn't have a clue. Considering how long Lavisa and I had been friends, it was actually kind of embarrassing how oblivious he was. Speaking. Yes, this is he. How can I help you? Oh, Professor Colt, it's Professor Jean Kirkman here, from Cambridge University. Another distinct advantage when trying to trick my dad is that he's terrible with names. You could say it was Brad Pitt calling, and he'd still spend 10 minutes trying to figure out where he'd heard the name before. I'm so glad to get hold of you, she continued in her fake voice. We've got a bit of an incident here. We have some specialists in the field who are convinced they are looking at evidence of recent lycanthrope activity. Lycanthrope, you say? He replied, his voice hitching higher and higher. Lycanthrope is just a posh name for werewolves, in case you didn't know. But she couldn't say that. Even my dad would have smelt something fishy. Scientists hate using words that other people know the meaning of. It's a superiority thing. You need to speak their lingo if you want them to take you seriously. Yes, Lavisa continued. They're there right now. I know it's a massive ask, but we are desperate for a second opinion, and your name was at the top of our list. Naturally, if these findings bear fruit, you would be credited in any papers. A pause followed. I could almost hear the cogs whirring in my dad's head. Cambridge, you say? I know, it's awfully last minute. If you can't make it, I'm sure I can... No, give me a second. Can I call you back, Professor... Kirkman? Of course. Let me give you my direct number, she said, straying from the script a little, but as smooth as anything. A moment later, Dad was standing outside my door. He cleared his throat before knocking once. Come in, I said, lying on my bed, trying to look as calm and bored as possible. The door creaked open and his head peeked around the corner. Ah, you're here, he said. Were you expecting me to be somewhere else? I replied. He moved from one side of the room to the other before coming to a stop back beside my bed. Is everything all right, Dad? I asked, trying to maintain the relaxed pose and natural voice, despite the fact that the next 5 minutes would require the best acting of my entire life. Is Mum okay? Oh, yes, he said. And then the pacing started. I just wondered what you were up to this weekend. This evening, really. Whether you had any plans? Plans? I said. I thought I might head to the city. Hear there's some great raves going on. Raves? Yeah, loads of young kids who'd be too drunk to notice if I fed off them. Dad's eyes bulged. Seriously? He is the easiest man on the planet to wind up. It would be amusing if it wasn't so... No, scrap that. It's always amusing. I don't want you guys to get the wrong impression here. I've mentioned about him being useless a fair bit and dragging us on holidays we really didn't want to go on, or spending days locked up in his study. And now here he is, contemplating leaving his vampire daughter to go on some wild goose chase looking for werewolves. But really, he's not a bad dad. He's not. He just gets a little hyper-focused, as he calls it. Don't go feeling sorry for my mum in all of this either. She knew what he was like when she married him. It was why she married him. Anyway, I feel like I should get that out there before you start judging him too harshly. I'm joking, Dad, I said, realizing it might not be a good idea to wind him up too much. I was planning on resting. Not sure what's going on with me. I think maybe I overfed at lunch. Resting? Pretty much. I feel a 48-hour doze coming on. I thought I might watch the new Jennifer Lawrence film if it's on Netflix. Mum stocked the fridge up, so yeah, I'm pretty much set. Unless there's something you wanted us to do together. You can join me for the film if you want. Film? Together? Cue another weird eye movement. No, not if you're all right, not if you're happy, he said. He moved towards the door, paused and turned back. You wouldn't mind if I pop out for a few hours, would you? I mean, you're not going to need anything, are you? I might be gone a little while. I shrugged, trying to look like I didn't care in the slightest what he did. I'm fine, I said. I could lock you in. If you want. Like that would stop me. Great, he replied. A moment later, he's on the phone to the fake professor and then packing his briefcase. Now all I had to do was wait. You've been listening to Life Sucks, Bloodsucker's blog, Book 1. Make sure you hit subscribe so you do not miss when the next post goes live. Bloodsucker's blog is written by Ella Stone, narrated by Hannah Lynn, and produced by Ella Stone.